Imagine you find a manuscript hidden inside a house that was never meant for your eyes. Not a novel, not a draft, a confession. Pages written in the dark by a woman who may or may not have wanted them found. Pages that describe things no person should be capable of doing. And as you read, your hands trembling, your mind trying to reject what your eyes are absorbing, you realize something that changes everything. The person who wrote these pages is still alive. She is in the room down the hall, and the man you are falling in love with is her husband. What do you do with a truth that could destroy the person you love? What do you do when you cannot be certain it is even true? What do you do when the lie might be kinder, and the truth might be exactly what someone wants you to believe? This is where Colleen Hoover takes us with Verity. Not into a romance, though there is one. Not into a thriller, though it operates with the precision of the best ones. But into a place where the reader cannot trust the narrative, cannot trust the narrator, and cannot stop reading even when every instinct says to put the book down and walk away. Verity is the book that broke Hoover open to an entirely different kind of reader. And once you have read it, you will understand why it is almost impossible to describe without ruining it. So let us try to do it justice. Who was Colleen Hoover when she wrote this book? By 2018, Hoover had already built a career on emotional devastation. She knew how to break a reader's heart. She knew how to make love feel real and complicated and costly. But Verity was a departure. A deliberate, confident step into darker territory. It was as if she looked at everything she knew about intimate relationships, about the way we construct the people we love inside our own minds, and decided to weaponize it. Hoover has spoken about how the premise arrived fully formed: a struggling writer, a dead author's unfinished manuscripts, a house with secrets sealed inside its walls. She was not interested in writing a conventional thriller. She was interested in something more disturbing and more personal, the question of what we choose to believe when the truth is genuinely unknowable. She grew up, as she always has, from the inside of real feeling, from the understanding that love is not just tenderness and desire, it is also the stories we tell about the people we love, the narratives we construct to make our choices bearable. Hoover understood in writing Verity that the most frightening thing is not a monster. It is a story, because a story can be edited. A story can be written by someone who wants something from you. And Verity is, at its deepest level, a book about exactly that. Let us enter the world of the book. We meet Lowen Ashby in the middle of a terrible day. She is a struggling writer, broke and desperate, witnessing a horrific accident on a New York City street that leaves her shaken and bloodied and strangely altered. And then, within hours, she receives an offer that changes the direction of her life entirely. Jeremy Crawford, husband of the immensely successful thriller writer Verity Crawford, needs someone to complete the remaining books in his wife's series. Verity has been rendered incapacitated following a series of catastrophic losses. The publisher needs the books. Jeremy needs the money. And Lowen, who has talent but no platform and no security, needs everything. She agrees to travel to the Crawfords' remote Vermont home, to live there, work in Verity's office, go through Verity's research and notes, to inhabit, professionally and physically, the space of another woman's life. Jeremy Crawford is not what she expected. He is grieving and guarded and real in a way that makes Lowen's chest tighten from the first moment. He has lost 2 daughters. His wife is a shell of herself upstairs. He is holding an entire collapsing world together with bare hands and somehow still standing. The house itself is a character. Old, beautiful, full of the weight of everything that has happened inside it. Hoover describes it with the attention of a writer who understands that spaces absorb the lives lived in them, that a house where children have died and a marriage has fractured carries that history in its walls, its light, its silences. And then Lowen finds the manuscript, hidden inside Verity's office, a document that is not a novel, that reads in Verity's own unmistakable voice like an autobiography, like a confession. And what it confesses is something so cold, so methodical, so calmly monstrous that Lowen cannot process it at first. She reads it twice, 3 times, each time hopping she has misunderstood. She has not misunderstood. Now we go to the heart of it. The central question of Verity is one that the book never fully answers, and that is not a failure. That is the point. The question is, who is Verity Crawford? The manuscript portrays her as a woman who experienced the darkest possible turn of the human soul, who looked at the people she was supposed to love most and made decisions that cannot be explained by anything recognizable as human feeling. The manuscript is written with such intimacy, such specificity, such apparent self-awareness, that it reads as undeniably true. And yet, Verity Crawford is a thriller writer, a world-class one, a woman whose entire professional life has been the construction of unreliable realities, of narrators who deceive, of stories engineered to make you believe one thing until the moment they make you believe another. She knows, better than almost anyone alive, how to make something fictional feel like fact. So is the manuscript a confession? Or is it a novel? Is it the truth about who Verity is, or is it a dark creative exercise by a woman who lived inside darkness for professional reasons? And if Lowen cannot know, if the reader cannot know, what does that mean for every choice that follows from it? Lowen chooses, against every rational instinct, not to tell Jeremy what she found. She tells herself it is because she cannot be sure. She tells herself it is because it might destroy him. But there is another reason, one she is slower to admit. She is falling in love with Jeremy Crawford, and the manuscript, if true, would make that love a rescue, and if false, it would make her the instrument of a cruel and calculated destruction. Hoover writes the developing relationship between Lowen and Jeremy with tremendous skill. It does not feel opportunistic or cheap. It feels like what it is, two damaged, isolated people finding each other in the middle of a situation that has no clean exits. Their connection is earned in a way that makes what follows even more unbearable. And Verity, upstairs, unmoving, watching with eyes that sometimes seem entirely empty and sometimes seem to hold something that looks uncomfortably like awareness, is present on every page, even the pages she does not appear on. She is the gravity the entire story orbits. Hoover gives us one of the book's most precise and unsettling observations through Lowen's narration. She writes that there is something uniquely terrifying about a person you cannot read, not because they are chaotic or explosive, but because they are still. Because stillness, in the wrong person, is not peace. It is patience. Let us talk about what this book is really about. The first great theme is the unreliable story and the willing reader. Verity is constructed as a meditation on narrative itself, on the fact that every story has a teller, and every teller has a reason for telling it the way they do. The manuscript Lowen finds is a story. Jeremy's account of his marriage is a story. Lowen's own narration, the one we are reading, is a story. And Hoover is asking us, with every page, to examine our own willingness to believe. We believe things because they are told convincingly, because they match a shape we recognize, because we want them to be true, or because we are afraid of what it would mean if they were not. The book implicates us as readers in the same credulity that implicates Lowen as a character. We are all reading a manuscript and deciding whether to trust it. The question is whether we are asking the right questions about who wrote it and why. The second great theme is the violence of love's blind spot. Jeremy Crawford is not a stupid man. He is thoughtful, observant, emotionally intelligent in ways that make him genuinely compelling. And yet, he has lived inside a marriage that contained, if the manuscript is true, something monstrous. And he did not see it, or he saw pieces of it and assembled them into a different picture, because we do that. Because the person we love is also the lens through which we see everything else, and we protect that lens with ferocious, unconscious dedication. This is not weakness. It is how love works. Love is not neutral. It edits. It selects. It builds a version of the beloved that the lover needs to be true. And that construction, that necessary, beautiful, dangerous construction, is what Verity tears open and examines without mercy. Ask yourself, is there someone in your life whose version you have accepted without fully examining? Someone whose story you have taken on faith because the alternative was too destabilizing? Most of us have that person. Most of us are also that person to someone else. The third great theme is the ethics of chosen ignorance. At the center of this book is a choice Lowen makes, to sit with what she knows, or suspects and not act on it immediately. She tells herself reasons. They are not entirely dishonest reasons, but underneath them is the simple fact that knowing something and acting on it are two different things, and the space between them is where most of the book's moral weight lies. Hoover is interested in what we owe the truth when the truth has no clean consequences. When telling it destroys one thing and not telling it destroys another. When you are not even certain what the truth is, only that you are holding something that could change everything and you are choosing, in this moment, and then the next moment, and then the one after that, not to let it go. That is not a comfortable place to live. That is exactly where Verity puts you and refuses to let you leave. Now let us look at these characters as the constructions they truly are. Lowen Ashby is one of Hoover's most carefully built protagonists precisely because she is aware of her own unreliability. She knows she is compromised. She knows her feelings for Jeremy are coloring her judgment. She knows she is rationalizing. And she does all of it anyway, consciously, with open eyes. That self-awareness does not redeem her choices, but it makes her real in a way that purely innocent protagonists never can be. She is also a writer, and that detail is not incidental. Lowen understands the mechanics of story. She knows what makes something feel true and what makes something feel constructed. And yet she is not immune to being manipulated by exactly those mechanics when applied to her own desires. Her professional intelligence is no protection against her personal vulnerability. That gap between knowing how something works and being unable to stop it from working on you is one of the most honest things Hoover has ever captured. Jeremy Crawford is the book's greatest achievement and its greatest risk. He is a man the reader falls for, essentially in real time, alongside Lowen. He is warm and broken and present in all the ways that matter. And the book asks us to hold that genuine quality, his goodness, his grief, his love for his surviving son, alongside the possibility that he is also a man who has been living inside something he has refused to see. He is not a villain. He may not even be wrong. He is simply a person who loved someone in a way that made certain kinds of knowledge impossible. We have all done that. The scale is different. The structure is the same. And Verity herself, Verity Crawford, upstairs, silent still. She is the book's true axis, the person everything rotates around, and yet she is almost never given direct voice in the present narrative. We know her only through the manuscript, through others' descriptions, through glimpses and suggestions. That distance is deliberate. That distance is everything, because the question of who Verity really is cannot be answered by knowing her. It can only be answered by deciding what you are willing to believe. And that decision will reveal something about you. What did this book do to the world? Verity was initially released in 2018 to Hoover's devoted existing audience. And then, in 2022, it detonated. The book talk explosion that carried it ends with us to mainstream cultural dominance also swept up Verity, but with a different kind of energy. While it ends with us provoked tears and conversations about abuse and survival, Verity provoked something more chaotic and arguably more addictive: argument. Specifically, the ending. Verity ends with a revelation, a second document that reframes everything the reader thought they understood. And it does not resolve the central ambiguity. It deepens it. It forces the reader to choose which version of events they believe, knowing that the choice cannot be verified. And readers responded to this not with the quiet devastation of it ends with us, but with an almost compulsive need to compare notes. Which version did you believe? Which document felt true? Did you think Jeremy knew? The internet filled with takes and countertakes and essay-length arguments, which is exactly what a great piece of ambiguous fiction is supposed to generate. The book became one of the most gifted, most recommended, most pressed into hands novels of its moment. It introduced a generation of romance readers to the pleasures and terrors of psychological suspense. It proved that Hoover was not one kind of writer, but many kinds simultaneously, and that her emotional intelligence, the thing that made her romance novels devastating, became something entirely different when applied to darkness. The cultural conversation around Verity is also a conversation about what women writers are allowed to write. Hoover did not soften the edges. She did not reassure the reader. She wrote a female character of genuine, unresolved darkness and refused to explain her, excuse her, or punish her with narrative tidiness. That refusal is a kind of artistic courage. Now let me be honest with you. Verity is not a perfect book. Its early sections, while necessary, move at a pace that some readers find effortful before the manuscript is discovered and the real engine ignites. The romance, which is genuine and well-constructed, occasionally strains against the thriller architecture, the two modes pulling in slightly different directions without always finding a unified tone. And the ending will frustrate readers who need resolution, not because it is lazy, it is anything but lazy, but because it refuses the comfort of certainty. If you need to know, definitively, what happened, this book will leave you feeling robbed. If you can sit with permanent ambiguity and find that more interesting than any clean answer, this book will stay with you for years. What it does brilliantly, almost without rival in its genre, is the sustained creation of dread. Not jump-scare dread, not gore dread. The slow, civilized, deeply psychological dread of not being able to trust the story you are inside. Hoover constructs that feeling with the precision of someone who has thought very hard about how narrative trust is built and how it can be systematically dismantled. Who should read this book? Anyone who loves psychological suspense and has not yet discovered that Colleen Hoover can write it. Anyone who loved Gone Girl or The Silent Patient and wants something that operates with the same fundamental unease, but in a warmer, more intimate register. Anyone who has ever wondered how well they really know the person they share their life with. Anyone who is interested in how stories control us, how the shape of a narrative determines what we believe before we have even evaluated the evidence. Who should approach with care. If you need your fiction to have moral clarity, this book will madden you. If you cannot tolerate a story that asks you to do the work of deciding what is true, you will feel the ending as a betrayal. And if you are in a relationship that is already shaking your ability to trust your own perceptions, be gentle. This book has a way of finding the cracks. We reach the end. Colleen Hoover wrote Verity as an act of profound literary trust. She trusted her reader to stay inside uncertainty without demanding rescue. She trusted that the experience of not knowing, the sustained, intelligent, uncomfortable experience of sitting with a story that refuses to close, was more valuable than any answer she could provide. There is a moment near the end of the book where Lowen makes a choice. A definitive, irreversible choice based on what she believes to be true. And Hoover does not confirm whether she is right. She simply lets the choice stand. Lets it be what it is, an act of will based on imperfect knowledge and complicated love, which is the only kind of will any of us ever exercise. Because that is the book's final argument. We never have all the information. We never know the full story of the people closest to us. We read the manuscript we are given, and we decide what to believe, and we act on that belief, and we live with what follows. And the most we can say, the most any of us can say, is that we chose based on what we could see. Whether that was enough is the question the book leaves in your hands. Not Hoover's hands, yours. And that, in the end, is what makes Verity not just a thriller to be consumed and set aside, but something that continues working on you long after the last page. A story that found the place where you decide what is true and made itself quietly, permanently at home there.